You have learned the organs of the respiratory system, the upper respiratory system organ, the lower respiratory organs, and etc. Now we're gonna learn the breathing process. Breathing is the first stage of respiration. Remember, there are three stages: breathing, external respiration, and internal respiration. So again, breathing consists of inhalations. Sometimes it is also known as inspirations. Okay, or breathe in. The second stage for this breathing is called exhalations or expirations, or breathe out. Okay, so the process of breathing is actually controlled by autonomic nervous system, right? So controlled by the ANS. We have learned this ANS. There are two types of ANS: the parasympathetic divisions, and the sympathetic divisions. Okay. The parasympathetic divisions control our breathing during normal, normal breathing. Okay, the sympathetics is control our breathings during the 4F and 4E situation, like during angry time. For example, when you're angry, then sympathetic division will control your breathing. Your breathing will be increased. When you get exercise, for example, embarrassment, it also will increase our breathing rate. So this is controlled by sympathetic division. But during normal time, the parasympathetic division will control our breathing. Now, where is this ANS located? With the control center. The control center for this breathing is located in the medulla oblongata. Remember, medulla oblongata is the place for most of the ANS control, including the cardiac, CV center, cardiovascular center. Now, let's say this is our brain. You have the cerebellum, you have the diencephalons. Okay, so this is cerebrums, cerebellums. Okay, this is front. And then you have diencephalons. And finally, you have the brainstem over here. Okay, so these are the four parts of the brain. On the brain stems, you have the midbrain area, midbrain, and we have the pons. This is B pons, and we have the C part, which is called the medulla oblongata. Okay, this is the three part of the brainstem. Now, the control center for breathing and respiration is actually located for the normal breathing, located in the medulla oblongata. You actually have two group of nucleus or cell body of neurons in the medulla oblongata that will control our normal breathing. Our normal breathing. And this area is called the medullary rhythmicity respirations. medullary rhythmicity respiration control or breathing control that consists of, okay, the front part. It is the inspirations area, and the dorsal part is the expirations area. Okay, so you have expiration and inspiration. Inspiration means inhale. So it will control your breathing automatically, okay, automatically. Yeah. So you don't have to count how many seconds you have to breathe in and breathe out because it's controlled by this ANS. So normally, for normal breathing, this expiration area will control your breathe in or inhalation about 2 seconds. So basically, normally, during normal breathing, you actually inhale air for about 2 seconds. Okay? And then, for the exhalation, normally we actually exhale for 3 seconds. Okay? So 2 second inhalation, 3 second exhalation. This is normal breathing. When you do exercise, then it's gonna be more. You might be more inhalation and more expiration. But during normal breathings, resting time, we breathe in 2 seconds, breathe out 3 seconds. That's the normal control. And it is controlled by this medullary rhythmicity respiratory area. That's the name of the control over there. On the pons area, so this is pons, you also have 2 other areas. Okay? This top one over here, okay? On the superior part, this area is called the pneumothoracic area. Okay, and then the lower part of the pons over here, you have the apneustic area. Okay, so both of these areas will help to control this normal breathing. So there is a coordination between these 4 areas during normal breathing. But this also, especially the amnestic area, will help us when we need more air. So during forced breathing. Okay, during forced breathing, like for example, when we do exercise, we will do automatically increase our breathing. Okay, you know it, right? When you do exercise, you need more air, right? That's actually controlled by mostly with this apneustic area. You're gonna be having more forced breathing during that condition. Okay, so these are the locations of our breathing control or respiratory center, which is located in the brainstem. This is the reason why brainstem is very important organ of the brain actually. If you hit someone on the back, for example, you might kill him. If you hit him in the front, maybe you're not. Why? Because if you hit on the back like this, if you learn karate or kung fu, they actually have the the way to kill people, just doing it on the back, on the neck. Why? Because it might stop the breathing, and also it might stop the CV, the cardio contraction, the heart contraction, because the heart is also located here in the brainstem. Okay, cardiovascular center, respiratory center, coughing center, sneezing center, they're all located in the brainstem. So brainstem is one of the fatal organ if it is, damaged, for example. Right? So that's the locations for or control for our breathing. Okay, do you have question for this one? If you want to be a doctor, then you have to know this place. Okay, so this control for breathing and also cardiovascular center. Okay, now how we know that we need more air, for example? we actually have the receptor. Okay, there's a chemical receptor or sensory system that will receive information whether we need more oxygen or not. So we have the chemicals. Let's say this is our heart. Okay, we have learned heart last time. So it has 4 chambers. This is left ventricle over here. Left ventricle is the one that carry the oxygen to the whole body. Okay, through this biggest blood vessel over here, which is the aorta. And aorta have 3 main parts, which is the ascending, the arch, okay, arch of aorta. This is descending aorta. This is ascending aorta. Now, in the arch of the aorta, you actually have some receptor for oxygen. It is a chemical receptor. Okay. It will tell us whether we have enough oxygen or not. If we don't have enough oxygen, what happens? This one will kick out. We're gonna be breathe more, take more oxygen. Also, from the arch of the aorta, if you still remember, there are 3 arteries that will be branching from this arch of the aorta. On the right side, okay, you have brachiocephalic. On the left side, we have this left common carotid artery, the one that carry blood to the left brain, and we have the left subclavian artery, the one that carry blood to our wings or our left arm. Okay, the brachiocephalic artery will also branch into 2. So this one's going to be the right common carotid artery, and this one will be the right subclavian artery. Now, brain is one of the important organs. They need a lot of oxygen. Therefore, we also have another receptor over here in the common carotid artery that tells whether there is enough oxygen or not that will go to the brain. If not enough, then we're gonna force the inhalation, inspiration. Alright, so there's some chemical receptor that we call the chemoreceptor that located in the blood vessel. So blood vessel actually will tell us whether we need more oxygen or not. Again, they are located in the arch of the aorta and in the common carotid artery. If we don't have enough, then we might have problem with our brain, maybe like a stroke and etc. Okay, so that's the chemoreceptor that will tell us whether we need more oxygen or not. Okay, you have questions so far? Now, what happens if we don't have enough oxygen? What is the condition called? I'm gonna erase this part over here. Okay, so the chemoreceptor over there will tell us whether we need oxygen or not. So if we don't have enough oxygen, this condition is called a hypoxia. Hypo means low. Oxia means oxygen. It tells us whether our blood have low oxygen or not. So if it is low, then that condition is called the hypoxia. Maybe you have heard this one, okay? This terminology. Hypoxia means low oxygen concentration, whether in the blood or maybe in the tissue. Okay, there are several types of hypoxia. The first one is called the hypoxic hypoxia. This is when the oxygen concentration in the blood is very low. So the blood actually have very low oxygen. So when it is happening, like for example, if you like to go to mountain climbing, if you go to the higher place, on the higher place, we actually have less oxygen pressure compared to the lower place. So in the beach, for example, we have a lot of, I think the oxygen partial pressures in the beach is 149 milligram millimeter mercury, which is very high. But when we go up to the mountain, it's going to be maybe lower than 100. Less oxygen in the higher place. When it is happening, what happened? Then we get less oxygen in our blood because we breathe in less oxygen atmospheric air. Right? Now this condition is called the hypoxia. So many climbers actually they die because of this hypoxia. They don't get enough oxygen. Right? So that's the first type. The second type is called the stagnant hypoxia. This is when the oxygen is not delivered to the tissue, maybe because of the heart failure. So the heart unable to pump the blood. Therefore, the blood will not carry that oxygen to the tissue. Therefore, it's called the stagnant hypoxia. The next one is called the anemic hypoxia. The anemic hypoxia. This means that we have maybe very low hemoglobin, for example. So our hemoglobin is very low. Hemoglobin is the protein that carry oxygen in the blood, in the red blood cell. When we have the problem with this hemoglobin concentration, so normally if you are male, it has to be around 14 to 16 when you measure the hemoglobin concentration. But sometimes we maybe have low hemoglobin. Then we have called the anemia, right? The anemia. The reason why this condition is called the anemic hypoxia, where our hemoglobins cannot carry, or we have low concentrations of hemoglobin. The same thing with people with the sickle cell disease. They actually mostly will have the anemic hypoxia. Why? Because their red blood cell has less hemoglobin concentration. The same thing with kids. Sometimes, if they don't have enough iron in the diet, they also will have this kind of condition, anemic hypoxia, because they don't get a lot of oxygen carried by the hemoglobin. Right? So that's the anemic hypoxia. It's caused by the inability of the blood carry the oxygen. Okay? And the last one is called the histotoxic hypoxia. Okay? Histo means tissue. Okay? So the problem is not in the blood, but the problem is in the tissue itself. The blood maybe carry a lot of oxygen, but the tissue cannot take it because what? Toxic. Maybe get poison. Like for example, if someone get the cyanide poison, their tissue unable to take oxygen. Okay, so cyanide poison, for example, it can cause the tissue to be unable to take the oxygen. So they will die, basically, because of this hypoxia. This is what we call the histotoxic hypoxia. And this is, again, will be sensed by this chemoreceptor. So chemoreceptor will tell us, well, we have hypoxia, then we have to do something. If we don't do this, or cannot solve this problem, most of the time they will die. Okay? Like for example, I mentioned before, many climbers, they can get killed because of the hypoxia. Okay? So do you have question for this condition? It's called the hypoxia. Okay? If not, then we go to the second stage of, forget to mention how much air actually will be exchanged during this breathing. Okay, again, it's controlled by the ANS. How much air? Okay, so during normal breathing, again, it's controlled by the parasympathetic division. Normal breathing, with 2-second inhalation, 3-second exhalation. The gas exchange is average half liter. So 500 milliliter air will be exchanged during normal breathing. 2-second inhalation, 3-second exhalation, it will change or exchange about half liter of air, oxygen and carbon dioxide. That's during normal breathing. Okay, now if we force, let's say force breathing, let's say we do experiment, we force our breathing all the way we can, mostly about 4,800 milliliter or about 4.8 liter air will be exchanged during forced breathing. Okay. Now, our total lungs volume, especially for male, is about 6,000 milliliter or 6 liter. So that's the capacity, the total capacity of the lungs. It can have about 6,000 milliliter air. Now, when we do forced breathing, only 4,800 is actually able to be pushed out from the lung. Then you still have some left in the lungs, right? That's what we call the residual volume. Just like, for example, you have inflatable bed at home, you try to push all the air, I believe you will not be able to do it. There is still some air left in the inflatable bed, right? That's what we call the residual volume. Can you calculate how much is actually residual volumes of our lungs from that calculation? Anybody can do it. Total volume is 6,000. We force all air, we try to take it out, but it's only 4,800. What is left? 1,200. So our residual volume, the one always about 1.2 liter air will stay in the lung, even though we force breathing. Okay, so this is the breathings, the exchange of gas during whether normal breathing or forced breathing. And again, the total lung volume is 6,000. The forced breathing is 4,800, and this is also known as the vital capacity. As you know, the highest volume of air that we can exchange, it's called the vital capacity. The total lungs volume is also known as a total capacity of lung. This is for normal people. There are some people that have problem like asthma, for example. They will have less vital capacity because they have the difficulty to breathe out and also to breathe in. They maybe have less of this one, right? If someone have asthma, bronchitis, other disorder or disease, it will lower their vital capacity. Right? Again, if you go, for example, to the doctor, sometimes the doctor will test your vital capacity, whether it's normal or not. They will ask you to force breathing. And then it's going to measure whether it's reaching this, close to this or not. Otherwise, if you have problem with the breathing, it may be less than this one. This is normal for healthy male. Okay. Do you have question for this breathing? Okay. This is the first stage of respiration. Now we go to the second stage of respiration. Now, the second stage is external respirations, right? Which is exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen in the lungs, especially in the area is called the alveoli, which is the balloon structure inside our lung. Let's say this is the trachea. We have 2 bronchi and many bronchioles. Each end of the bronchioles will have this structure, is called the alveoli. And then it will be protected by an organ is called the lungs. Okay, so this one, I said this structure over here, and is called the alveolus. The one alveolus. Many of them is called the alveoli. Okay, so the action of gas in this lung will be mostly 99% located in this alveolus. Now, if we make it one of these bigger, let's say like this. So this is alveolus, and let's say this is blood vessels. Okay. And the air will go here, right? This is inhalation, then there's gonna be a lot of oxygen over here. Okay, so oxygen pressure in the alveoli is about PO2 0.5 milligram mercury. So 0.105 milligram mercury pressure of oxygen, partial pressure in the alveoli sac. Okay. Now, this alveoli, the layer or the wall of the alveoli consists of one layer of squamous epithelial tissue. And again, you already learned the type of tissue. One of them is called the epithelial tissue. There are several types: squamous, columnar, and cuboidal. So this one is squamous. Squamous means flat. So just one layer. Therefore, it's called a simple squamous epithelial tissue. One layer of this flat tissue. Okay, simple squamous ET, epithelial tissue. Okay. So this layer of simple squamous cell tissue, one of them is called the type 1 alveolar cell. Okay? So type 1 alveolar cell. So there are 3 types. In alveolus. Number 1 is called the type 1 alveolar cell. which is the cell that actually creating the wall of this alveolus. It's only one layer. This is the cell that actually used for gas actions. Okay. So because we have higher pressure of oxygen in the alveoli sac over here, and in the blood vessel is about 100 milligram mercury of the oxygen partial pressure. It means that less pressure, right? Therefore, the gas, in this case oxygen, will move from higher pressure 105 to the lower pressure through this alveolar type 1 cell. Type 1 alveolar cell is used for gas exchange. You get this one? Now, again, also remember in the blood over here, the carbon dioxide pressure is about 45. While the PCO2 in the alveolar cell is around 40. Okay, so what does it mean? The carbon dioxide will move from the blood to the alveolar, to the sac of the alveolus, because 45 go to 40, higher to lower. And then if we also put the PO2 in the atmosphere, in the air, is about 159 milligram mercury. It means that oxygen which actually automatically will enter into the lungs, go to the alveolus. The PCO2, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide, is only 0.3 milligram mercury, which is very low. It means that you see 40 over here. I'm going to use the blue color for the carbon dioxide. It will be out, from higher pressure 40 to the lower pressure. That's the reason why breathing is actually automatic action. Automatic action that will be controlled, of course, by our brain, but it's also controlled by this pressure over here. Now, this is the external respiration. This is actually breathing over here. Okay, now, that's the first cell. Remember, there are 3 types of cell. The second type of cell, I'm going to use, let's say, blue color over here. It's called the type 2 alveolar cell. Let's say we're going to use over here type 2 alveolar cell in the lumen of the alveolus. And this type 2 alveolar cell will produce chemical. Produce chemical is called surfactants. In this chemical will keep our lungs inflamed. So produce surfactant to keep the lungs inflamed. It's actually keep the lumen of the alveolus to inflate. Surfactant. And this surfactant is produced by this type 2 alveolar cell. And this start production is actually when we still in our mother womb. When we are around 8 months old, then the type 2 alveolar cell will start to produce surfactant. Can you follow this, right? So when we are 8 months old in the pregnancy, these cells start to produce surfactant. It means that before 8 months, this cell will not produce the surfactant yet. Can you follow this? Now, what happened with the baby that, they born before the time? What do you call it?
Premature.
Premature. Okay. If this premature is under 8 months, like for example 7 months, they already born, what happened with their lung? Their lung is not inflated yet because the surfactant is not produced yet. So most of the time, the premature baby, if it is lower than 8 months, they will go to the special place to get help with their breathing. Can you follow this, right? Why? Because their lung is not inflated yet, because the surfactant is not produced yet. Okay, you can follow this. Okay, and then after that, they will produce that surfactant to keep our lung to inflate. That's the second type of cell in the alveolus. The third one, okay, I'm gonna use the red color here. Okay. The third type of cell is called the type 3 alveolar cell. This is actually macrophages. Right? Macrophages is a type of white blood cell. Okay, so let's say gonna put it here. Okay, and this is the one that kind of clean the lungs. They can remove the debris, they can kill the maybe bacteria that enter into the lung. Yeah, this is the type 3 alveolar cell. Sometimes it's also known as type T dust cell because it's kind of removing the dust from the alveolus. Okay, so do you have questions so far? This is external respiration. Again, the main cell that perform this external respiration, the gas exchange, is type 1. The type 1, which is the simple squamous epithelial tissue on the wall of the alveolus that will exchange the carbon dioxide from blood to the alveolus and oxygen from alveolus into the blood. Okay, do you have questions for this? Okay, we're done with number 2. We go to the stage number 3, which is internal respiration. Okay. Internal respirations, which is gas exchange. Okay, oxygen and carbon dioxide in the tissue. Okay, now let's say this is from the lungs. We have the lungs, then the blood will carry the oxygen into our tissue over here. Okay, so again, in the blood, we need the cardiovascular system now, the circulation to carry this blood into the tissue. So the pressure of oxygen over here is about 100 milligram mercury, okay? And the pressure of oxygen in the tissue is about 40. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that you have 100 over here and you only have 40 in the tissue. It means that the oxygen will go here, will go to the tissue, to the cell. Inside the cell, the oxygen will be used by organelle is called the mitochondria. Use the oxygen to produce ATP, okay, to produce the energy. Of course, for this reaction, we also need glucose, right? So glucose with oxygen will be converted into ATP, water, and carbon dioxide, plus carbon dioxide. Right? So carbon dioxide is the byproduct, right? The waste product. The real product should be ATP. It means that, right, over here, right, from this process, it will produce carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide pressure over here is going to be around 45, whilst here is 40. Over here 40, right? So it means that the carbon dioxide will enter into the blood, will be carried by the blood, and then the pressure will increase over here. Okay, so this is 40 PCO2, and then when it's received extra carbon dioxide from the cellular respiration, then the P carbon dioxide over here increase into 45. So when they reach to the lungs, it's 45. Okay, so this is the exchange of oxygens in the tissue, okay, based on the partial pressure of carbon dioxide and also oxygen. Again, oxygen is 100 in this, over here is only 40, then oxygen will be delivered into this tissue. Now, the more active the tissue, the more carbon dioxide will be produced over here. Right? It means that the less oxygen will be here. Maybe this is normally 40, maybe when you do exercise, the oxygen pressure maybe go down to 30 for example. It means that oxygen will be delivered a lot to this active cell. So oxygen will be delivered to the most active cell first. The non-active cell will not get enough oxygen because they don't need it. What are the active cells mostly? Our cardiac system, our muscle, cardiac muscle, they are very active, they never stop. Our brain, they never stop. So 20% of our oxygen actually will be delivered to the brain. How about skeletal muscle? Which one gonna be get more oxygen? It depend on our activity. If you use more muscle, for example, if you are a boxer, maybe you use mostly for your arm, for example, you might get more oxygen to the arm, will be less to the other part. Or if you are a runner, for example, you might get more oxygen to the skeletal muscle on the legs. Okay, so it really depends on whether your cell active or not. More active will get more oxygen. Less active will get less oxygen. Okay, okay, do you have questions so far? Now the oxygen over here, okay, mostly will be carried by, so this is red blood cell. There is a special protein in the red blood cell that will carry the oxygen. It's called a hemoglobin. Okay, so the transportation of oxygen mostly carried in the red blood cell. So 99% oxygen will be carried here, even 99.5. It's very close to 100% oxygen will be carried by the red blood cell. So red blood cell is very important cell that carry the oxygen. Only 0.5 will be in the blood plasma. While over here, the carbon dioxide, okay, it is carried by hemoglobin is only about 23%. Okay, and then the 70% will be carried in the blood plasma in the form of the bicarbonate ions. So in the electrolyte, in the ion condition. So this is carbon dioxide over here, 70%. And the other 7% is a dissolved oxygen in the blood plasma. So 23 carried by the red blood cell with the hemoglobin, 7% in the dissolved part of the blood plasma, and 70% in the form of carbonic acid. So this is the one that will be carried into the lungs for the external respirations. Okay. While the oxygen mostly will be carried by the hemoglobin. That's the reason why if we don't have enough hemoglobin, it means that we're gonna have less oxygen carried. And again, this condition is called the anemic hypoxia. Okay, I think we're gonna stop here. Okay, for the rest, you can check the PowerPoint. Should be able to fill out all your assignment for next week. And the assignment is also include the digestive system. Even though we have not discussed the digestive system yet, please look for the answers for that assignment on the PowerPoint. And again, that assignment will be due after the lecture. We are going to give you lecture, digestive system on Thursday, and then after that, your assignments will be due. Do you have questions?